Obviously very sad at the result we've achieved, and very sad at those colleagues that lost their seats in the election, and very sad for many people in this country who will now have a government that is continuing policies of austerity, and many of the poorest communities, I think, will suffer very badly from the economic strategy that I suspect the Prime Minister will take forward. But also, I have pride in our manifesto that we put forward, and all the policies we put forward, which actually had huge public support on issues of universal credit, the green industrial revolution, and investment for the future. But this election was taken over, ultimately, by Brexit, and we as a party represent people who both voted Remain and Leave, and my whole strategy was to reach out beyond the Brexit divide to try and bring people together, because ultimately the country has to come together.
So what went wrong?
Well, those in Leave areas, in some numbers, voted for Brexit or Conservative candidates, which meant that we lost a number of seats and we didn't make the gains that I'd hoped we could have done, particularly in the Midlands and Yorkshire in the north.
I was listening to some callers to RBC this morning and speaking to people who are knocking on doorsteps, and the same from the Shadow Health Secretary before the election, saying the same thing, that actually you're part of the problem. Is now time to accept that perhaps your leadership may have contributed to this result?
Well, I've done everything I could to lead this party, done everything I could to develop its policies, and since I became leader, the membership has more than doubled, and the party has developed a very serious, radical, yes, but serious and fully costed manifesto. And I've received more personal abuse than any other leader has ever received by a great deal of the media. Now, that happens all the time. I will talk to our national executive about what we do in the future. I called for last night a period of reflection in the party, and obviously the ruling body of the party, our national executive, will decide what process we follow then for the election of a successor to me. But I am quite prepared, and I was elected to do so, to lead the party until that takes place.
That some of those voters mentioned things like sympathising with the IRA, anti-Semitism, failing to deal with it, making a party that's too London-centric, and ultimately being too left-wing. Again, do you not accept that those are some of the things that have attached themselves to you, that have made you less electable?
Is ending universal credit and paying the WASPy women and having a green industrial revolution too left-wing? They are huge issues that face our country, and I think our manifesto did face up to all of that. Of the attacks that have been made on me, I have dealt with the issues that have been raised. I inherited a system that didn't work in the Labour Party on anti-Semitism. I introduced the rule changes necessary to deal with it, and they're in operation. But I think anti-Semitism is an absolute evil curse within our society, and I would always condemn it, and always do, and always will.
Once again, the left, when Labour's gone further to the left, as it did under Michael Foot, they've lost badly, the Conservatives. Do you think that Corbynism is dead?
It's not Corbynism. There is no such thing as Corbynism. There is socialism, there is social justice, there are radical manifestos, all of which are there.
But are they also unelectable?
No, I don't think they are unelectable at all. I think the issue that dominated this election ultimately was Brexit. Our policies, I've named some, and there are many others I could name, were actually all of them individually very popular. There was no huge debate or disagreement in the party about any of the policies in our manifesto. The issue was, ultimately, the Prime Minister said he's going to get Brexit sorted. It is, how should I put it, a mirage of nonsense, because he knows perfectly well that he's either got to get an agreement with the European Union, or he's going to spend 7 years negotiating with the United States, and I'm worried about the effect on our manufacturing industry and our trading position in that period.
You don't think a more centrist David Miliband kind of character could have done better, could have beaten Boris Johnson?
I don't think the result would have been any different, because we have to make an appeal to people who voted both Leave and Remain. And we, appealed to all on a manifesto which would bring about more social justice in this country. And I am proud of the campaign that we fought, the effort that I put into that campaign, and the effort that hundreds of thousands of people did who saw in what we were saying, particularly a lot of young people, saw in what we were saying some hope for themselves, some future where they wouldn't go into debt just because they wanted an education. Some
of your MPs have turned on you, as, or your candidates who didn't get elected. I'll just quote one prominent Labour Party figure, Alan Johnson, who summed up some of the feeling when he said, "I want momentum gone." He made it sound like it was a kind of parasite that had sucked the electability out of the party. Do you accept that momentum has been this kind of internal party within a party? And how do you feel about Alan Johnson asking for it to go?
Well, I don't agree with Alan Johnson on this, and there are many candidates who are not necessarily on the left of the party who were very grateful and very happy for the support that Momentum supporters gave them in the campaign. And Momentum is an organisation of lots of people, with actually quite a wide range of political views. They see themselves as an activist base. They see themselves as people that are organising communities and community action in our society. I think that's actually a very healthy democratic development, and it's a different style of doing politics. But I think what we've shown over the past 4 years since I became leader, this growth in membership and this growth of community activism actually is healthy for politics and healthy for democracy. And I regret those kind of comments because I think they're very unfair.
Do you feel at all guilty that Boris Johnson's got another 5 years at number 10? Do you feel at all responsible and guilty for that?
I did everything I possibly could to win this election. I did everything I possibly could in order to bridge the divide between those that voted leave and those that voted remain. Because at the end of the day, they're going to live in a country where we're going to need that investment for the future. We're going to have, if this government stays in office, more homelessness, more divisions, and a bigger gap between the richest and the poorest. And so I did everything I could. Of course, I take responsibility for putting the manifesto forward, but I have to say the manifesto was universally supported throughout our party and throughout our movement. And so, as I said in my own count result last night, we don't give up on the eternal hopes of a more decent society and the urgent demand to make our contribution for a sustainable world. And that's exactly what our manifesto, our Green Industrial Revolution, would have done.
You talked about last night a period of reflection before you stand down. You wouldn't lead the party into another general election. When are you planning on standing down?
Well, the National Executive will have to meet, of course, in the very near future, and it's up to them. They'll make that decision, not me, but what I hope is there will be a period when we can have a good discussion within the party, and I think that's healthy and that's to be very welcome. And I hope those that were inspired by our manifesto will actually join the party and take part in that discussion. It's up to them to set a programme for when an election will take place. It'll be in the early part of next year.
Because quite often leaders stand down straight away after a general election defeat like this. I mean, this is a catastrophic defeat. Many people would expect you to stand down straight away.
I was elected to lead the party, and I think the responsible thing to do is not to walk away from the whole thing, and I won't do that. I will stay here until there has been somebody elected to succeed me, and then I will step down at that point.
You talked about being misrepresented. Do you feel you've been misrepresented in the media?
Yes, absolutely.
In what way?
Look at, if you analyse the coverage that's made of the Labour Party, you analyse the coverage that's made of me, you're looking at in the 80% and above of negative, hostile, or frankly just downright abuse of individuals and character assassination and constant attacks on me and my family and others. And I just think we need to have some consideration of the effect this has on politics when the whole of political debate is seen through the prism of personal abuse and personal attacks. I never indulge in personal abuse or attacks. I never attack anybody personally. And the words I've often used is, I won't get into the gutter because I think our lives and our politics is too important for that.
Just two more questions. When the history books declare whether Jeremy Corbyn was for or against remaining in the EU, What should they say?
I hope the history books will say he's somebody that did campaign to remain in the referendum in 2016. We all know what the result of that was. And that after that, what I tried to do was negotiate an agreement with the EU so that we could have either remain or leave, but leave with a trade relationship with Europe. What I don't want to see is this country cut off from the continent of Europe because of the obvious trading relationships and all the personal and family relationships there are, because I think for us to become a sort of offshore tax haven of Europe would be a very, very retrograde step, and we cannot allow ourselves to become some sort of trading arm of the United States on the shores of Europe either.
Who should be your successor?
Well, that is not for me to decide. The party will elect somebody as a successor, and I look forward to supporting that person.
And what will you do?
I will be the MP for Islington North, and very proud to be the MP for Islington North, and I will continue to do the campaigning work I've done all my life on issues of social justice, on issues of housing, and issues of human rights around the world, and of course of environmental sustainability, because that is what I've spent my life doing, and that's what I'll spend the rest of my life doing.
Jeremy Corbyn, thank you very much.
Thank you.